Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today we're gonna speak to a famous comedian. I know what you guys say, Trey. You always have famous comedians on. Well, they deserve that title, famous comedian. Hell, I'm not a comedian, but you've got to have that word famous attached to it because they done the work to get to where they're at, and they deserve the name famous. And this is a different type of comedian. She's an entrepreneur. She's an actress. She's a producer. And you've probably seen her in the Hulu movie Wild Nights with Emily, the story of Emily Dickerson, the poet, and the industry's way of trying to portray her less than a woman of magnificent contributions. Without further ado, let's welcome to the Andre the Beast Crayton Show, the one, the only Miss Comedy herself, Jacqueline Monahan. What's up, Jacqueline?
Hi. Thank you for having me on the show.
Hey, I am blessed to have you here. Before we get deep into your story and the part that you played in such an extraordinary tale of a woman's journey, tell the viewers a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born in New Jersey, but that right outside of New York, and then I grew up in Rhode Island to an only child of two alcoholics. And
Wow.
then I moved here from New York City, and I live in Los Angeles now, where I do comedy. I do a lot of writing and yeah, and acting, and I do it all. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I take people at rehabs that are getting sober. I take them running with a group called Strides in Recovery. And I
Oh,
did a
okay.
half marathon with people that are getting sober, and I help people stay sober.
You grew up in a household environment with two parents that both had addiction problems.
Yeah.
What was that like? Like, you're definitely a comedian now. How did you?
Yeah.
How I don't.
That's a recipe for a
Yeah,
comedian.
like how did you navigate through that, and especially in the Jersey area? I mean, how did you navigate as only child?
Yeah, it was tough because they say when you're an only child, you are basically just living with a couple. It's not a family. And that's how it really felt that I was living with this unhinged couple. And then we were in Rhode Island, and my extended family was in New Jersey. So I didn't even have them really. It was just me. But I feel like it's kind of my superpower because as a comedian, we have to spend a lot of time alone, and I really love being alone. So but I love being with people too. I love both. So it really helped me because a lot of people find it hard. That's a hard part of comedy that you're traveling alone. You know, you're on stage alone. You write alone. So it really helped me.
When you say that you had to learn to be alone, most time when you hear individuals that don't have brothers and sisters, they usually create imaginary friends. What did you have to do to create a safe environment for yourself? And did you even know that you was in an unsafe environment? And if you did, what age did you start realizing that mom and dad got some issues here?
Yeah, I was like four. I remember distinctly, and I recently did a show called Broke or Broken, and it's a storytelling show about heartbreak, and everybody talked about a romance, and I talked about my parents. That at very young, about four, I was like, oh no, these two aren't. They're not thinking right, and it's not that they were drunk all the time,
Mhm.
which they were drunk a lot of the time, but they were pretty much functioning in a way. They both had jobs, but when you're and alcohol, they were raised by alcoholics and they were raised by alcoholics, and alcoholism is a disease of perception,
Mhm.
so they had a disease perception, so their thinking was off and I knew it was off, and so it was a little bit scary, but I knew how to take care. I learned very quickly to be very aware of what was going on around me and to take care of myself.
How did you navigate your childhood going into getting the ability to go off on your own? Because you mentioned you hear this a lot when it comes to addiction, and nobody has quite cleared this up for me. Functional, functional drug,
Right.
functional
I say
alcoholic. What does
they,
functional mean? You fuck up at your crib, you beat your kids, you act uncivilized
yeah,
in your household. I mean, what is
they,
what is that?
I say that they both had jobs. That's functional, but it's not really functional. There's no, in a way, there's no such thing. And I used to say like they were functioning alcoholics, and the key word is were, because they ended up at the end not functioning at all, because alcoholism is a disease of progression, so it progresses. So when I was little, they seemed from the outside just like two people that liked to party, and they were social, and yes, but I mean my dad got more drunk than my mom, but my mom drank more home alone. So yeah, they were functional to a point, but you're right. There's no such thing really. It's not. It's they're still alcoholics for sure. And my dad died of the disease. But
Right.
same thing, people like his family think that he didn't. He got esophageal cancer, which is caused by alcoholism, and then he had two strokes. And I really believe he'd still be alive if he wasn't an alcoholic. But but they feel like he died of the strokes.
Were there were there moments in you are recovering as well? So let's go
I
back.
am.
Let's go back a little bit.
Yeah,
You,
that's
you,
crazy. It's crazy that I didn't know there was an option of not drinking. I was like, I'll either drink like my dad or like my mom. And I didn't want to drink like my mom. I wanted to be like my dad and out all the time. I didn't want to be home alone waiting for somebody to come home. And also, my great grandfather was the treasurer of the Plaza in New York City.
Mhm.
And he would go off on benders with F. Scott Fitzgerald, a
Wow.
famous writer at that time.
Mhm.
And he wouldn't come home, and my grandmother would be so worried that his wife, her mother, would kick him out because she said he would kick him out. So I grew up with my mother waiting for my dad to come home and hearing about my great grandfather not coming home. So I was like, I thought I had two choices: be the one waiting for people to come home or be the one out partying. So I was like, I'm going to be the one that's out partying. So I became that alcoholic. Uh, so yeah, I it never occurred to me that I would be an alcoholic, even though both my parents were alcoholics. And your chance of being an alcoholic when you have an alcoholic parent is very high. And also, if you drink before you're 21, the the chances of being an alcoholic is very high. So I started drinking when I was 12, and both my parents were alcoholics. So I really had
Wait
no
a minute.
chance.
Wait a minute, Jacqueline.
I had no chance.
You started drinking when you was 12 years old.
I did.
Were
I
you
did.
sneaking
Not
drinking?
heavily.
Were you
Yeah, yeah,
sneaking?
yeah. Well, when I was sick, they gave me alcohol. It was supposed to help me with my cold.
So they gave you bourbon, whiskey,
Yeah.
really,
Hmm.
and then
Yes.
then start you just start drinking from that moment on. I mean, you got
Yeah.
a
I
taste
well, no,
for it.
I had my first like drunk when I was 12, but I didn't start drinking regularly until I was probably like 16, 17. But I still never really drank alone. I was a very social drinker. I was a social periodic drinker.
I guess at that age, you're not really mature enough to understand the consequences, and I guess you
Yeah.
wasn't experienced enough to see the effects that it was having on on your parents as well. Is that probably right why you just kept doing it?
Yeah, I didn't realize my mom was an alcoholic until way later, because my dad was such an alcoholic. In comparison, my mother didn't seem like one because my mother wasn't slurring. As she got older, she started slurring and stuff. But where my dad slurred and repeated himself. But as my mom got older, she was repeating herself and slurring. But yeah, so yeah, then I saw a comedian on stage slurring, and I was like, that's my future. That was a whisper for me to
Wait a
quit
minute. Who
drinking.
was the comedian that you saw
I
slurring?
can't say, I'll never say.
So let's back up a little bit. So how did this impact your life before you when did you realize you had a problem with the alcoholism? Because you're very successful. I mean, were you able to nap were you did you become, let me rephrase this. Did you become a functional alcoholic prior to realizing that you had the problem? And if so, how did you know that you was being labeled as a functional alcoholic? And when did you decide to take the bulls by the horn and start addressing that you're not a functional alcoholic, you are an alcoholic?
Right. Well, so I was functional and I was married. I was married to a woman, and enabled me a lot to drink a lot. And but she didn't know either. But when I wasn't drinking, like if I was grumpy or annoyed, she would give me alcohol because it would make me happy again.
Hmm.
So it was kind of enabling me. And I and anyway, so I drank a lot, and then but I was out all the time drinking. And then I drank with her. But then I was cast in a movie called Codependent Lesbian Space Alien Seek Same.
Hmm.
And that went to Sundance as well. And I was actually supposed to have a little part in it, and I was so good at it that and so like able to improv and have fun and do take direction and play outside, like improv with people. I wasn't scared of anything.
Hmm.
That the director kept making my part bigger and bigger, which was really fun. And I was we were filming. I had to learn all my lines, and we were filmed for 14-hour days. So, and I was the alien, so I had to be put in a bald cap. So I was in makeup for a long time every day. So I didn't drink. And I realized after, I was like, oh, I didn't drink for 2 weeks, and I'd never done that before. So
Wow.
that was a whisper. But then I kept drinking, and I was actually thinking, like, I can't wait to have a project that I want to quit drinking for. But then I did a couple more movies, and I drank during those. And I actually one time I showed up drunk for a movie. That was bad.
What happened?
And
Wait a
then
minute. Wait a minute. Don't go there. Don't leave
yeah,
it hanging. What happened?
it wasn't acting, but it was I had already acted a part, and the director needed me to dub the she needed it clearer for me to do a voiceover for my own acting, and I couldn't do it because I was so tipsy. I couldn't. It was very frustrating for her, and she had gotten the sound guy and everything together to do it. But I
Well,
don't remember it really. I don't
oh,
really remember it, but she tells me about it.
you don't even remember. That's crazy when you're on a job in the movie industry and you're so intoxicated that you don't remember before, after, or anything. And they was courtesy. It seemed like they would have told you, but I guess it was like, you'll figure it out alone life's past, I guess, and
Yeah.
opportunities may not come. With that said, when did you decide to get treatment? When did you really
Ye-
recognize that you had a problem?
Yesterday. I'm just kidding. uh, 7.5 years ago, I uh, I didn't go to rehab. I got sober with a 12-step program.
Okay.
I started dating a woman who was sober. It's interesting because I had friends that were sober. I was the first one in my family to get sober. Oh, I guess I had a cousin that got sober. But
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
I
Wait a minute, Jackie. How many people in your family are drinking?
everybody, we're all Irish.
Okay, well, okay, so everybody is so
Everybody.
nobody in your generation recognized that they had a problem.
No,
You was the first one to
no.
step
I,
out.
I didn't know. I didn't know at all until I was trying not to drink. So anyway, so then I stopped drinking for myself, and because I really kind of quit for comedy because I wanted to be sharper on stage,
Mhm.
and and then I cried to my sponsor. I said, I feel so sad that I got sober for comedy and not for myself. And she
Wow.
said that most people get sober for a different reason other than themselves, but they stay sober for themselves.
Let me ask you a question
But
now.
yes,
Did
yes.
you said something that was really impactful, and thanks for sharing this, but you felt better performing while being under the influence
Yeah.
at one point when you did it for yourself. How much more how much more did your performance grow? And then has anybody ever came back and said, you know what, you're a lot sharper, but this is what I didn't like about what you was doing while you were under the influence? What was the two differences?
Uh, I believe I kind of got stagnant when I was drinking. I I wasn't writing as much as I do now. And I just had like a certain set that I did all the time, and I wasn't able to be off the cuff.
Mhm.
Where being sober, I can be off the cuff and play with the audience more, and I'm in the moment where I wasn't in the moment before. But I would perform drunk, but people wouldn't know because I had the set just down. So I would get off stage and people would be like, "You're drunk." But they wouldn't know on stage. They didn't know I was on stage.
I
But
mean,
talking to me after, they could tell.
now you appeared in such things as NBC Last Comic Standing, Showtime Comedy Jam, Adult Swim. Those are some major performances to be on. I mean, you wasn't had you sought treatment prior to being on these particular platforms?
Uh, for the Showtime Comedy Jam, I probably had 3 glasses of wine and a shot before I performed on that.
Mhm.
But Last Comic Standing, I I had quit drinking on my own without a program, and I was 33 days without a drink, and I really should have just drank because I had no coping skills. And and yeah, I it's interesting because I didn't get past, but Russell Peters said I came out like gangbusters. I feel like if I had been drinking, I would have done better because he said I came out like gangbusters, and then I said a joke and the audience didn't laugh, and he said to the audience, "You should have laughed. It was a good joke." He said, but I he could tell I let it affect me and I went down. But then I brought them back. But that it's like falling down and ice skating. I let it affect me. I kept falling, but then I where I could have just brought them back. Anyway, if I had been drinking, I wouldn't it wouldn't have affected me that I went down. But it doesn't affect me now because I've performed for so long sober, but then it was kind of too soon in the game for me to do that. I should have just drank really.
You
But
men-
whatever, it is what it is.
you mentioned you didn't have you touched on something. You're talking generations of Irish bloodline that this is the norm.
Right.
All of a sudden, you're realizing this isn't the norm, but it's affecting you. But you don't. You said something that was keen. You didn't have coping skills. So
None.
because you didn't have coping skills, was it easier for? I guess it was easier for you to go back to what you know is normal, which is drinking. So with that said, who helped you to realize that you can be sharper at your craft if you master removing this from your repertoire?
It was actually me. It was myself. I was getting frustrated that I for just like regular shows that didn't have a lot of stakes, I could be sober on it. It was fine. But if a show had stakes, I I I needed alcohol. Like I would be so nervous. I couldn't handle it. I would need alcohol. And then it would just backfire on me. So I really wanted it for myself. I wanted to be sober on a show that was high stakes with without drinking.
Let's talk about the PT, post traumatic stress disorder, and the ADD. Were these two particular ailments, were they was already pre-existing in you? Did you already have these?
Yes. Yes. But I didn't know. I wasn't diagnosed until after. So I just
Oh.
found out pretty recently.
So what do you think triggered those two parts of your journey?
Well, oh, what made them happen?
Yeah, when you're dealing with post traumatic stress disorder, something along life's past brought up something that was
Right.
difficult to
It's
process.
but when I was diagnosed I was like, wait a minute, PT, because it was before it was popular that I was diagnosed it.
Mhm.
And I was like, that's for veterans in war that like some people get shot. Like, how do I have PTSD? But then I'm like, but then I'm like, well, they were adults at least. They were 18. Like I just was in a crazy house as a little kid. It was, and so that was, there was some abuse in the house. So that was my PTSD.
You had literally blocked all that out for so many years.
Yeah,
Like, what
for
kind of
sure.
abuse was it? Mental, physical, verbal, or the combination of?
All of it. All of it.
That's crazy that you had to go that deep that you didn't remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
And then ADD, uh, I think it was, I think that caused the ADD too.
Mm.
I don't know. I don't really. I've heard two separate things that you're just born with the ADD, and some people say you get it from your childhood. But I don't know. But I would not be surprised if I didn't get it from my childhood. So I don't know.
You look back on your childhood now, naturally, you've been sober. Congratulations on that. And you're
Thank
doing this thing.
you.
Like, what are some of the things you take away from your childhood that has made you reevaluate your whole life so far?
Well, I really have a talent for laughing at very heavy subjects.
Such as?
And oh gosh, suicide, uh, rape, at really dark stuff all the time.
When do
Yeah.
you do you
So
talk about
I
this?
have a talent. I have a talent for it. And yeah, where some people can't joke about these things. And like Wanda Sykes saw me do a joke and she was like, nobody else could, she's like, that's a great joke and nobody else could do it but you. And I just have a talent for it.
Give
And
me
I
a
think
give,
it's
give the
it's
audience
from
a
my childhood.
sample. Give the audience a sample of a joke that, because you just mentioned something. I don't know how you can make a light an enlightenment out of those categories from, rape to this to that and the other. I can't even picture that, but when you got somebody like Wanda Sykes said only you can do that. Give me an example of taking something dark and making it to where it's a different light shed on it.
Okay. Okay. So I talk about I ask if there's any dentists in the audience, and then I say there never are. And I say that's because they have the highest rate of suicide. And I'm like, that's why every time I go to the dentist, I'm like, is today the day, doc? And the receptionist always has the gall to call me. And she's like, hey, Jackie, I just want to confirm your appointment. I'm like, I'm not the one you have to worry about, Rose. Like, statistically, your boss is the one you should be calling today. And I'm like, and you better, because if I waste a trip down there and he's not there, I'm really mad. And then I say that's why it's 4 out of 5 dentists surveyed.
What made you decide to do a lot of research on these statistics and to bring more light into these particular dark areas? Is it because these are things from your own experience or people that you came in encounterment with or what?
I guess I heard that dentists had the highest rate of suicide, and I was like, why? I thought that was crazy. That didn't make sense because they have make so much money, and so I just got really curious about it, and I asked people about it, and really, at that time, toll booth workers had the highest rate of suicide, but they didn't consider it a career, so it was dentists.
Really?
Yeah.
We
So
just learned something today. I didn't know that.
yeah. So then when I went through toll booths, I was always like extra nice to the toll booth workers.
Hmm.
But yeah. And but it is interesting, there's never a dentist in the audience. Like maybe once in all that time. But I guess why they get depressed about it is there is A, they people hate the dentist,
Mhm.
and B, it's depressing just looking into a dark cave all the time, just looking into the mouth all the time is depressing.
Let's look. Let's go a little bit. Let's go a little different direction. You married. You you had relationships with females. Was are you how do you often get approached with your choice in relationships with so much of the LBGs and ABCs and all these different alphabet organizations coming up? Like, how do you stand firm with your belief with what society is feels you should be uh, um, labeled as? And I'll tell you where we're going with this because this will lead us into the movie that you took place on Hulu because um, that's a big topic now. The all the different LBGs and ABCs and all the different alphabets out there. What's your take on it? How do you educate, empower, and let people know that you have the right to do whatever you want to do?
Well, I think that there's no freedom like being your total self. And I feel like we live in a society where people want everybody to be the same. And I think I'm very passionate about people doing what they're passionate about and for being who they are and being able to love who they love. I really had more of a hard time. I had no problem coming out I married a woman, so I just said I was a lesbian because I just figured she and I were going to be together forever. But then we got divorced and I did date men. So, but now that there's a Republican in office, I probably will only date women again. I can't I can't date men when there's a Republican in office. I just physically can't. Um, but it's true. I physically can't. Anyway, so yeah, it's passion. I'm passionate about people being who, but yeah, I had a harder time coming out as dating men. That killed me.
What do you mean?
It killed me. I really kind of tried to hide it, and
Oh,
Yeah, it was awful. I hated it. I disappointed so many people.
why?
And I really like I had no problem disappointing my family that I was a lesbian. Uh, but I hated disappointing the lesbian community that I liked men, that I was dating men for a little while.
Why did you do it? But more importantly, if you knew, did you do it for? Put it out there. Did you do it for your career? Did you do it for peer pressure?
No, I did
Before
it for personal reasons. I thought I really thought I was in love with my ex-wife. We're still best friends. Today's actually her birthday. I called her today. But I was in love with her and I really thought we were going to be together forever. So I was like, there's no reason to say I'm bi. I'll just say I'm lesbian and just like take everything off the table. But then when we got divorced, I realized I wanted to, because I'm not really attracted to, I'm not, people think like, oh, you're bi, you're attracted to all the bodies. But I'm really not attracted to people's bodies. I'm attracted to their minds. I'm attracted to energy. So it's not like just one gender that I'm attracted to. Where my ex-wife could never date a guy like this. She's just that's not her thing. She's attracted to the female body, where I'm attracted to someone's energy and their
that's kind of interesting. I never interviewed somebody that is a lesbian or both ways or whatever. But a topic that I would ask you, because you were involved in marrying a woman, and you said your ex-wife would never ever date a man. Do they give reasons for that? I'm curious. I'm pretty sure the viewers are like,
she's just
why?
not attract she's just not attracted to men at all. It's not her it's not her physical makeup. Where if she yeah, she's just not attracted to the male body whatsoever. Where she's very attracted to women's bodies. Where I'm not attracted to either, really. I'm attracted I'll be attracted to them once I fall in love, but I'm attracted to intellect. I'm never like, oh, I need that person's body. Never.
Huh. Interesting. So
Yeah.
that's shift in a different direction. You definitely been a part of movies, two in particular, Sundance and the Foxy Merkins. Did I get it right? The Merc.
Yeah, the Sundance was the festival that the Foxy Merkins was in.
Okay.
And so the Foxy Merkins, I'm very passionate about. I co wrote it and co starred in it. And it's a parody of My Own Private Idaho, which is a Gus Van Sant movie that's about, it was starred Keanu Reeves and River Phoenix, and it's about male hustlers. So our movie was a parody of My Own Private Idaho. We were going to call it My Own Private Wisconsin, but we called it the Foxy Merkins. And merkins are a toupee for the vagina that were invented in the 15th century for women that were prostitutes that had syphilis, because they had to shave their pubic area, so they would wear a toupee on their vagina so that they could work, so nobody would know. So that's the name of it, the Foxy Merkins. And we have a scene where there's a Merkin salesman. But it's we're lesbian hookers. And we our
What's
clients
a
are all
lesbian hooker? I'm like totally dumbfounded here.
right. That's why it's funny, because there's no such thing.
Okay.
There's no such thing as a lesbian hooker. And but in the movie we are lesbian hookers, and we our clients are all Republican women who don't want anybody to know that they're attracted to women. So we hang out like at like stuffy clothing stores looking for conservative women, and we get them to
Okay,
buy
this
our
this this is gonna
services.
sound crazy, Jacqueline, but how in the hell did you come up with a movie script like this? Like, where in the hell was your mind at this particular point?
Well, for me, I I had there are outdoor areas in every city where gay guys hook up with one another. Well, did now they have grinders, so they don't have to have that. But growing up, I knew, and there's still in LA. There's Vaseline Alley, where guys will hook up with one another. And in New York City, there's
Wait
the
a minute.
Rambles.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Gasoline Alley?
Vaseline.
Vaseline Alley? Oh my God. Okay. Keep going. This is interesting.
And gay guys would ask me where there were lesbian hookup areas. And I was like, there's no such thing. There's no such thing. Like, it would be like a lesbian being like, do you want to open a bookstore with me? Like, it wouldn't be like, there's just no such thing. And I always say I was out in a Home Depot shed trying, but it didn't work. But yeah, so that's where the idea came from me. But the director, it came to her because her friend had been married to a man and she came out as a lesbian. She got divorced and she was like, I want to get a lesbian hooker. And because I want to do it right now. And my friend was just like, there's no such thing. So she always thought about it. So she and I both had it in our heads, like the juxtaposition, how funny it is. So that's where we wrote it together.
How much of your own experience was put into this, and how did you everything seems to be choreographed from a woman's standpoint more is what it appears. So how much of your
Yeah, but it's
input
very funny. It's very funny. Men love it. There's nudity.
was what?
But my wife at the time is in it. She's one of the hookers, and from my life, yeah, I feel like there's a part of me because my character was like more bossy and more like getting the other one to do my dirty work.
Mhm.
So so there is a part of me that was like that at that time, but it just a small part of me. But
Now,
yeah, but a lot of my jokes ended up in the movie too.
okay. So let's go to a more serious, more recent um, movie role that you played in the movie Wild Nights with Emily. The story airing on Hulu. You can watch it on Hulu, and it's called Wild Nights with Emily. The story of Emily Dickinson, the famous poet, and how society tried to conformulate her into um, a stereotype. Tell me a little bit about the movie, how the movie came about, and your role in the movie.
So the movie, it's the same director that I had with Foxy Merkins, but I didn't co-write this one. I did a little bit of improv in it,
Okay.
but I love the movie, and I didn't see the movie until it premiered at South by Southwest, and I didn't see it until at the premiere, and I was crying after because it was such a beautiful movie. I couldn't believe I was part of it. It's so beautiful. So Molly Shannon, who was my childhood, even though she's not that much older than me, she was my childhood hero. And you know, she played Mary Catherine Gallagher and Superstar and Saturday Night Live. She played Molly Shannon. She played Emily Dickinson. And I played Molly Shannon. No, I played Lavinia Dickinson, which is Emily Dickinson's sister.
Okay.
So historically, we were all taught that Emily Dickinson was a recluse, that she had to be a recluse. She didn't have any love in her life. And so society wanted women to think like, oh, you can't have a job in the arts. You if you could choose one. If you want to be a famous poet, you have to be a recluse without any love in your life. So it made me not really want, like, it made me think twice about doing acting and being in the arts because I was really taught that women couldn't do that because had to be a recluse. And but it wasn't true. She was actually a lesbian having lesbian affairs. She had tons of lesbian affairs. And once you realize that and you read her poetry, and one of her poems is called Wild Nights. And you can read it in the poems that she was a lesbian, but they also erased things in her poetry to make it look like she was straight. And and yeah, and they found out later on with new forensics, they found out that things were erased and they put in what was really there. So they found out her true history. So the movie is really beautiful, showing because she had a beautiful love affair with actually her brother's wife. But the brother's wife only married him so she could be closer to Emily because it just was unheard of at that time. But Emily never got married. She just had different affairs.
Wow.
So the movie is historical, but it's also very funny.
When you look at Emily's life and look at your own life, how did the two compare? Her journey and
I'm just
yours.
so grateful. I'm so grateful that I didn't have to hide who I was, that I was able to be myself. And I found it sad that she had to hide her life. So it made me even more so want to be myself as fully as possible.
You know, you've accomplished so much, and you're so transparent with your story, with your comedy. What's next for you? Like what's on the plate? You got so many things going on.
Ooh
What's next for
la
you?
la. You can also watch the Foxy Americans on Amazon.
Okay.
And also on Amazon, you can watch my special, These Lips.
What's that about?
And it's my stand up.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, and you can listen to it on Spotify and Apple as well. It's called These Lips.
No.
And the joke with that is I say I'm jealous of men because they have the perfect excuse. Like wasn't thinking with this head, I was thinking with that one, and all is forgiven. So I say if I said anything that offended anybody, I didn't say it with these lips. I said it with these. So that's
Reverse psychology.
yeah, that's my joke with that. So that's the name of the album, These Lips, and so you can listen to that anywhere and watch it on Amazon. But in mm, down the road this year, this upcoming year, 2025, I'm going to record another special.
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't know the name of that one yet. It's going to come to me after I film it.
What do you like
But
doing?
I think I'm going to film it in Boston.
You can always film it here in beautiful Indianapolis, Indiana, the greatest city in the world,
Woo! Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can always come here and do that. Before we wrap up,
Nice.
Jacqueline, what do you like better? Congratulations on sobriety, but now you have a much clearer head. You're operating on all cylinders now. What do you like better? Do you like stand up? Do you like acting? Do you like writing? Which one do you like and why?
I love them all. I think, gosh, it's interesting. When the Foxy Merkins was in at Sundance, I really was, for some reason, prouder of writer than actor.
Mhm.
And then I found that shocking to me. Maybe because Sundance is more for writers. I don't know. But writing is pretty lonely. I do it with other people, so that's great. And acting, I really love them all for different reasons. And I think in my head, stand up is probably, I gotta say, stand up is my favorite.
Okay.
It's so much fun.
Okay.
It's like addicting. But I
Okay.
love acting too. I really do.
You like them all for different reasons, and
I do.
I can kind
Yeah.
of sum that up for you. I think you like it for different reasons. For the simple fact is, each one of the things that you embark on has a message, and that message is usually a little bit about you and your empowerment and how you change your life one step at a time.
Yeah.
How can the viewers reach out to you, Emma, Jacqueline, and support everything that you're doing?
Uh, Go to JackieMonahan.com, but especially Instagram, Jackie Monahan at Instagram. All my socials are Jackie Monahan. I have a Facebook page that's Jacqueline Monahan, but I also have a Facebook page that's Jackie Monahan. But I'm also on TikTok, Jackie Monahan.
Sounds like a winner. Thank you so much, Jacqueline, for coming on the show.
Thank
Thank,
you. You're a great interviewer.
thank you. Make sure you guys support, click, like her. All it takes is one click to bring yourself one step closer to connecting with individuals. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton show.